When growth feels quiet. Sometimes growth doesn't arrive the way we imagined it would. We expect it to feel like clarity, like confidence, like a visible shift we can point to and say, this is it. This is who I've become. We expect momentum. We expect excitement. We expect a sense of arrival. But often, growth feels much quieter than that. It shows up without announcing itself. It doesn't bring fireworks or relief. It doesn't even bring certainty. Instead, it feels like a subtle change in how you respond to things that once pulled you out of yourself. It feels like less urgency, less explanation, less internal noise. This can be confusing, especially if you've learned to associate growth with effort and intensity. We're taught that change should be noticeable, measurable, impressive in some way. So when growth feels calm, neutral, or even a little dull, we assume something is missing. We assume we've stalled. But quiet growth is still growth. There are seasons where growth isn't about becoming more, but about becoming less reactive, less attached, less entangled in patterns that once felt unavoidable. This kind of growth doesn't demand your attention. It simply changes the background of your life. You may notice that certain conversations no longer hold the same weight, that opinions you once felt the need to defend now pass without much reaction, that situations that once drained you now feel distant, almost irrelevant. These changes are easy to overlook because they don't feel dramatic, but they are not accidental. Quiet growth often looks like restraint, like choosing not to engage, like stepping back without making a statement. It looks like doing less emotional labor for things that no longer deserve it. And because this kind of growth doesn't produce a visible outcome, it can feel unsatisfying. We live in a culture that rewards visible transformation, before and after, lessons learned, clear narratives. But real change doesn't always follow a story arc. Sometimes it integrates so slowly that you only notice it when you look back. You don't wake up one day feeling healed or resolved. You simply realize that something no longer occupies as much space inside you, that your thoughts return to neutral more easily, that you're not constantly bracing yourself for what comes next. This kind of growth doesn't feel empowering in the moment. It feels ordinary. It blends into your routine. It feels like nothing special. And that's exactly why it's so easy to dismiss. But ordinary doesn't mean insignificant. In fact, some of the most stable versions of ourselves are built during these quiet phases. When there's no urgency pushing us forward, when we're not chasing insight or trying to fix something, when we're simply living with a little more ease than before. Growth doesn't always feel like expansion. Sometimes it feels like settling, like things falling into place without effort, like the absence of inner conflict where there once was noise. And because there's no tension to resolve, we don't recognize it as progress. We ask ourselves why we don't feel inspired, why we don't feel driven, why we don't feel transformed, and we miss the truth that inspiration isn't the only sign of growth. Sometimes stability is. Sometimes peace arrives quietly without asking for acknowledgement. If you're in a season where nothing feels particularly intense, no major breakthroughs, no dramatic shifts, it doesn't mean you're standing still. It may mean that something has stabilized within you, that you've integrated lessons you once had to think about constantly. This is not stagnation, it's consolidation. It's the part of growth where things stop shaking long enough to hold weight. And while it may not feel exciting, it is often what allows the next phase of growth to happen without collapsing. We'll continue from here.